Video goes now. How about some rock music?
Canned rock music. Although, you know what? There are actual musicians behind this.
Yes.
So I don't.
This wasn't AI.
I don't want to dull the craft of musicianship.
He smirched the names of the studio musicians.
By the way, have you ever read anything written by AI?
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's not good.
Like,
not good.
It's the broadest platitudes. It's awful. I guess, I mean, I'm a person who thinks that AI isn't going to replace humanity in a lot of things, but who knows? I mean, we're getting ever closer to Skynet. Am I right?
It is. That's right. That's correct. Orange Blue today, presented by Champ Honda. We had a down day today. Yeah. There's no way around it. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about Tim Patrick, the Achilles injury now. The KJ Hamler news ties into this as well, Mace. But they go out there for 7-on-7s. First off, first day of pads. And they go out there for 7-on-7s after a while. I mean, it took about an hour before we really got much of anything. Some routes on air, lots of stretching, and all those good things. We get to 7-on-7. We're excited, and I think it was the second play. Tim Patrick slips, and he lays there as the play goes on, and then he turns around, sits down, cusses, throws his helmet and his gloves, and we're like, oh,
you knew.
No.
You knew it was bad. He knew it was bad. It's a left Achilles injury. It hasn't really been like 100% confirmed. It's still like, feared and all that, but you knew. And I think he knew when it happened too, because the nature of Achilles injuries, you're going to feel it. Sometimes you're going to hear it too.
Pop.
Because it's going to pop.
Yeah.
And they're almost always non-contact. This one was non-contact. Think about that. We came in to today talking about, it's full pads. Hey, it's going to be popping out there. But you're always concerned about the injuries, and yet the biggest injury happens non-contact.
Right.
Last year, he was going up for a ball. Came down wrong, toward the right ACL. And it's going to be 2 straight seasons on the shelf for Tim Patrick.
Yeah.
It's for him, it's devastating. I mean, we'll get into the impact for the team, but for him personally, to lose 2 consecutive years, it's crushing, and it's bad for the Broncos. They're going to lose his leadership. The only thing you can say on the positive side of all this is that he got paid before these injuries happened. Right. He signed that contract with $18 million guaranteed. He's got the life-changing money. So that is literally the only silver lining on this.
Right. And I would say this, not that I've talked to Tim about it, but I bet he'd give up all his money just to play. He's that type of guy, right? Where it's like playing means so much to him, and maybe he wouldn't. Obviously, it's life-changing money, but I get it. He got his money. We're happy about that. But he's played, 6 games?
6 games.
You had that tweet earlier, right?
6 games, 1 touchdown since he signed that 3-year contract extension back at the bye week in 2021. 1 touchdown. It's hard. I mean, and unfortunately, through no fault of his own, just through the whims of fate and circumstance, it's looking like a very bad contract for the Broncos in terms of their cap management, but that's part of it, right?
So not to play revisionist history, but why did they sign them both? This is on George Payton, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
George Payton signed both Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton, yes.
Why not just one and not the other? Why both? I mean, it hasn't worked out for either one. Sutton stayed healthy enough, but he hasn't looked like the same. And you have the most expensive wide receiver room in the country, and now Tim Patrick is down. And again, injuries happen. I'm not bagging on George Payton. Don't start that. But you have a situation where Payton kind of needs to look good to his boss, Sean Payton. And, this is just a gut punch, I guess you would say.
You know what? I will say this. If we're talking about lack of production and they're healthy, I think that's one thing. When you're talking about 2 non-contact injuries like this, I don't think you can hold that against George Payton. If you're Sean Payton or anybody, I don't think that's on him. Sometimes stuff happens. I was going to use a stronger word. I'm sure you can think of it and everybody knows, but sometimes it happens. as far as Scump says.
Sometimes they make bumper stickers about it happens.
Yeah.
My only counter to
Sometimes.
It's like a box of chocolates. I don't want to get caught up on this, but my only counter to that is he was always hurt in college. Like, I love Tim Patrick. You mentioned it. They're going to miss his heart. But this is a player that fell undrafted, not due to lack of talent. The dude's as talented as the day is long. But he was undrafted because he gets hurt all the time. So, and I was standing next to some fans that were like cussing in front of kids, like this is disaster. I'm here to tell you today, it sucks, Broncos country, but it is far from a disaster. Pop that cold one, Mace.
Yeah. Well, it's just an orange crush here.
We could have some cold pops on the show, maybe.
They're actually they were in my backpack during practice, so they're kind of lukewarm because they got a little warm today.
Okay, we could get some Honda koozies, and then who knows what we could be drinking.
But well. But yeah, and I said it last year, and in the end, they did miss Tim Patrick. But if you were going to have a position group besieged by injury, you'd probably say wide receivers pretty much at the top.
Yeah. If they lose Zach Allen, they're crushed. If they lose Russell Wilson, they're crushed. They lose Timmy Pats, there are other guys that can step up.
Now, you're talking about guys growing up, and we'll get into KJ Hamler a bit because for the moment he appears to not be any factor any longer as he's was waived non-football injury illness today. But you did use a late second round pick, but a second round pick on Marvin Mims Jr. And you do have an intriguing young receiver in Brandon Johnson. And you did sign Marquez Callaway, who was reasonably productive for the Saints when he played for Sean Payton back in 2021.
I believe their leading receiver. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Believe so,
yes. 700 yards receiving.
Yes.
So, yeah, Marquez Callaway.
Which is right there in line in what Tim Patrick has done in the last couple of relatively full seasons he's played.
Right.
Tim Patrick in 2020, 15 games, 742 yards. In 2021, 16 games, 734.
Those are Marquez Callaway type of numbers.
It's tough. Obviously, you missed the person. I remember Deshaun Williams back in January talking about how when he left, he kind of lost that dog. Garrett Bowles and Deshaun Williams, both raved about it. Deshaun said something interesting that he's an offensive player, has the mindset of a defensive player. And that's hard to get back.
That's rare.
Yeah, that you don't see that very often. So I think that's what you're losing more. And the other thing also for Russell Wilson here, and trying to run this offense and what Sean Payton wants to do. Tim Patrick had slant God liked vibes. I mean, we know about Michael Thomas, the slant God, and what he did with Drew Brees there in New Orleans. Tim Patrick, I think, could have done a good percentage of that.
Yes. And
that's where I'm concerned about the Broncos being okay. I'm not sure that there is an apples to apples replacement for that specific aspect of what he would have done.
Right. We're all excited about Brandon Johnson. We should be, but nobody has that versatility. And well, since it's training camp and fans are out there, Cortland Sutton studied Michael Thomas. I didn't see him run the Michael Thomas routes like I saw Tim Patrick run them.
Mm-hmm.
So you could study Michael Thomas all you want, but it was Timmy Pats that was getting that Michael Thomas treatment.
Yeah. And we alluded to that. What little we could say about OTAs and minicamp,
I think read the code.
I think we did make that point, though, that if anyone was going to be some version of the slant God, it was going to be Timmy Patrick.
Yes.
And that's what you're losing right now in terms of the quality of play. So it's tough, man. It's tough. Just when you think the clouds are starting to part over this team after the last 6 seasons, something like this happens.
I know.
They're still, they're still in a tough place. And okay, I had a thought here, and maybe I shouldn't say it. I wonder if Sean Payton still thinks they're a playoff team today. I would hope he would, because you can replace receivers.
Right.
And he has Marquez Callaway, we know that he likes. But I'd say right now, you and I have talked about how much has to go right for this to be a playoff team. That if everything went right, they still might go 9-8 and miss. Well, now here's something big that has already gone wrong.
Yeah.
For a team that, if it's to accomplish that playoff goal, probably has a minuscule margin for error and just cut into that today.
Well, there are some options out there. James Maryland at denversports.com wrote about it as well. Even Rashard Higgins, former CSU represent. So like there's some names, Hollywood Higgins. There's some names out the wide receiver position that are still available. We had Wesley in the chat room said, I wish D-Hop was still out there. Well, Broncos aren't going to get DeAndre Hopkins, but they could get one of these other, Kenny Golladay. Again, these are the names that are available out there. Jarvis Landry, I believe, is out there as well. So, like, you do have some options, and you have about $9 million in cap space. If you wanted to make a move, I don't think you need to. More on that in a little bit when we talk about Brandon Johnson and the other guys. But like, yeah, there you have some options here, and I would think that Sean Payton would believe they're still a playoff team.
Okay, and I would think he's still going to maintain that. I'll maybe it's more accurate to say that sitting here today, the chances took a hit. I thought they had probably about a 30-35% chance of being a playoff team. I'd probably say right now that's around 25%. So I'd probably say, I just said it. Why did I need the qualifier probably? I just said it. 25%. There you go. With your chest. Oh, man, it's like the phrase, to be honest with you. What does that imply? I'm not being honest with you?
Other times? Yeah, it's training camp, baby. It's training. So
I've been reflecting on that modifier a lot lately. That qualifier. Right. Like, why is that qualifier necessary? Right. So, anyhow, yeah.
Why are injuries necessary? But it is a tough day, and you felt the mood change.
Oh, it
was a gut punch. Not only the fans cussing, but on the field, it seemed like there was a mood change. There was still some physicality. Saying, Bassey, you were naughty. There was some physicality today, but it seemed like that it took some wind out of the sails.
It was like the scene in Dumb and Dumber where the cork pops and kills the owl at the big society benefit in Aspen. Right. And Jim Carrey as Lloyd Christmas looks around and says, boy, this party really died. It really did feel that way. Like it happened. Just the air went out. When they finished the 7-on-7 period, Sean Payton huddled the team up. And that appeared to be kind of a boost the morale, get the energy back. And the fans seemed to sense that as well, because they got a "Let's Go Broncos" chant going on the berm. But yeah, it was aside from a few moments like Essang Bassey, like Jaleel McLaughlin, who we're going to get into today.
Yes.
It's aside from that, it was tough. By the way, do we want to play Sean Payton's comment on later? We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. We got a couple of Sean Payton clips. We got a Sean Payton clip on Jaleel McLaughlin.
I blanked on the clip.
And then we got Pat Surtain talking about one of our favorites, who I think had pass interference problems today.
Yeah.
I was like, Jaquan, I love you, but like, that's PI, dude. Like, I was sitting on the hill doing this all day. Like, yeah, no, that's a flag. That's a flag.
The feistiness can become grabbiness pretty quickly. It's a thin line between feisty and grabby.
Yeah.
And I'd say Jaleel, unfortunately, today crossed the line.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean he doesn't have it, but sometimes you got to take that fire and have a controlled burn. Today, not the case.
More on Jaquan in just a little bit. The KJ Hamler thing that was diagnosed with pericarditis, something that I'm glad that he has, taken medication, all the right things to correct.
Yeah.
Hardy Nickerson played with pericarditis.
Yeah.
Something I'm familiar with as well. Like, this is something that can be treated with medication, proper diagnosis, proper medication, proper diet, all those sorts of things. So it's a heart issue, though. It's just like I said about Jonathan Cooper or anything. Like, you don't mess around with your heart. You don't mess around with your dome, your head. So I'm glad that they got it. But now NFI, maybe bring him back. What does all this mean?
You wait and see. He could be out dealing with this for a few weeks here. That's usually how long it takes the medication for that to kick in and get the results and get you past it. So the question is, do the Broncos bring him back, or has the boat just sailed? look, last year, remember they brought back Brandon Johnson, right?
Yes. Yep.
So that's why I would not dismiss the notion of this club bringing back KJ Hamler when he's back to full health after this.
Right.
But there's got to be a need for that, and that'll depend on what the receivers are doing. If they feel they need to bring back KJ Hamler, or if he decides his fortune is better cast elsewhere. You think about it. So at this moment right now, KJ Hamler, 2020 second round pick, is not on the team. At this moment right now, you look at the third round of that draft, Michael Ojemudia, not on this team. McTelvin Agim, not on this team. Lloyd Cushenberry still is. So 3 of the 5 picks, the first 5 picks for the Broncos in 2020, no longer with the team here before the end of the first contracts. As we sit here today, that was John Elway's last draft as a Broncos executive. And this is just another notch in a frustrating last few years on Elway's watch when he was handling personnel.
Right. So we'll see what they do at wide receiver. Brandon Johnson's a name to watch. Marcus Callaway is a name to watch. We do like Taylor Grimes. He's been a little quiet.
Okay.
In training camp.
I want to talk about something, though.
Okay.
On one of Jaleel McLaughlin's runs today, a really nice block from Taylor Grimes on PJ Locke.
Yes.
Love that. Love seeing that. I mean, it was good read by Jaleel, but getting beyond the second level was predicated entirely on Taylor Grimes making that block. And trust me, that's the sort of thing the coaches are going to notice.
Yes. So not the catches. And by the way, can we get a memo to DiNucci? Like, just look for Taylor. Like, I don't think
he's open
progression wise. He's getting to him, but it's like Taylor Grimes is open almost all the damn time.
Yeah.
And he'll get a catch. He had one today that was of note where it's like, okay, there's some excitement, but it's like, man, you could feed this kid the ball. They're not doing that yet, which maybe means he's going to sneak through to the practice squad, but we got to wait for the preseason.
Maybe they're hiding him a little bit, but
maybe
you don't want him to get frustrated and act like Frank Grimes on The Simpsons when he went a little nuts there at the end. Couldn't you're a Simpsons fan?
Yes, more of a Futurama fan.
Because you know about the Frank Grimes episode, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Do you know what that was in part to do? Like the whole point of that episode?
No.
Frank Grimes was designed to represent reality. And the whole thing was, if Homer Simpson were in the real world, how would he be perceived?
Like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Frank's character conveyed that.
It's actually a tragic story.
It is. It's an incredibly dark episode.
Yes, very much so. Yeah. Guy goes nuts.
Yeah.
Watching
at the
Homer
end,
not work.
because he's done everything right that you can do.
Yes.
Like, yeah, here's my degree in nuclear physics. Oh yeah, Homer, he was just there when the plant opened. And he's the safety inspector.
Exactly.
And I love it. There's a moment in that episode where he's talking with Lenny and Carl, and Frank is reacting to that, quote, irresponsible oaf being our safety inspector. And I think it's Carl who says, it's best not to think about it. Anyway,
sometimes that's what Broncos fans have to do. It's best not to think about these
the
injuries.
last few years. But you know what? Let's get Taylor Grimes the ball so he doesn't get frustrated like Frank Grimes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Any sort of Jalen Virgil thoughts? Virgil had a nice catch and run today.
They're using Humphrey. Him. We can't talk about the tactics, but they're using him in some interesting ways, which shows me that maybe they want to give him a look. And the other thing is, and this is the grim reality of the NFL, but you have Tim Patrick go down, KJ Hamler waived NFI today. For the Brandon Johnsons, Taylor Grimes's, Marquez Callaway, Lil Jordan Humphrey, all those guys, their chances of sicking increased.
Yes.
What was the phrase that Marv Levy used to say that in the NFL, someone's misfortune becomes somebody else's fortune? There it is. Somebody's going to have a job on the 53-player roster because Tim Patrick tore his Achilles in all likelihood today.
Right. And I thought that, and we had a chat room question about it when I watched Montreal Washington work as a returner. Mm-hmm. He looked better today as a returner.
Yeah, he did.
I was like, okay, he's not going to do anything as a receiver, but if you keep him as a returner only, his chances now have increased. I don't necessarily like that. It's nothing personal. But for me, I'm like, Jalen Virgil's a receiver who can be a returner as well.
Would you like to be wrong on Montrell Washington?
I would love to be wrong on anybody that I take a stance on. All
Yeah.
I know is that the guy didn't have any sort of buzz before the draft, and this team overlooked really good players to draft him.
Like?
Well, one, Isaiah Pacheco. When do we talk about safeties? Do we ever talk about Delarian Turner-Yell? No, the guy picked right before Tariq Woolen. I saw a guy with the Turner-Yell jersey on today, though.
Really?
I was like, it had to be a family.
Gotta be family, yeah.
And it was custom, you know what I mean? Because
yeah.
it was like an old 32, and then it said Turner-Yell in huge
I mean,
letters.
It's a great name, Turner-Yell, but
not a great game.
So far, no, and he's down the depth chart a bit. Too.
Yeah. So like with Montrell, would I like to be wrong about him? Sure. And that's what I always say, Mace. Because I know you listen to me religiously. Prove me wrong. I, got to be wrong again about a prospect. I don't want to be. But with Montrell, I just look at all these other receivers that I would prefer because you actually can use them as a receiver.
You know what? We should have a drop that is the John Elway soundbite from that commercial that he did. He did a medical commercial a few years ago when he had
the Vikings disease.
Yeah, the hand that Dupuytren's contracture. I know I probably just fouled up the name. At one point in the commercial, he says, "Turns out I was wrong," and I actually clipped that and I posted that on Twitter once. And I'm like, that's actually a great drop to use. And I quoted that yesterday in a story I wrote about Rocky's attendance, because I referenced a piece that I wrote back in April about, are people finally, going to stop going to Rockies games because they're so frustrated? They averaged 30-some thousand a game this weekend for the worst team in the National League versus the worst team in the American League. So I actually can say, turns out I was wrong. And I know you'd like to be wrong, but what was Montreal was before Tariq Woolen too, right? Or no?
No, it was the same round.
Same round.
Yeah.
Okay.
Delarian Turner-Yell was right before Tariq. Montreal's pick was Pacheco. You should have picked Pacheco.
Yeah.
So there you go. Mims, is he practicing? Wes asks that in the chat room. Yes, he is
practicing
very much.
It's mostly punt returns for Mims right now.
I think he's still kind of feeling it a little bit, the hamstring wise.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching his body language. I've seen him touch the back of his leg. Like he's healthy enough to be out there, but I think it's also like let's kind of be careful with him a little bit.
Understandable trepidation since he's now had 2 hamstring injuries just since he got here.
Yes.
For rookie mini camp in May.
Yes.
So I get that. You've got to be careful to make sure that this isn't KJ Hamler 2.0 with the hamstrings.
Right.
As well.
Yeah. You want to be very, very careful about that.
Yeah.
Let's get into depth at corner, shall we? We have some comments from Broncos head coach Sean Payton.
Well, no, the corner.
This is
that's from
PS2.
This is PS2 talking about.
We've screwed up all of the quotes, but at least we have them for you.
Yeah.
Video courtesy of one Andrew Mason. Pat Surtain, best corner in the league, and he's talking up the guy that Mason and I have told you about, Jaquan McMillan. Here's Pat Surtain.
Hey, he's playing at a high level. You can see he's making plays all over the field, but not only that, he's very comfortable and very poised out there. He showed that last year in the last game, how comfortable he was out there, him making plays, it's just going to show right now. And he's just very locked in the meeting rooms, perfecting his craft. He's just locked in that aspect as well.
But did it take you by surprise at all when he played like that? I mean, you saw him in practice and all that.
Yeah.
Goes out last game of the season.
Nah. I expect all of that. I wasn't surprised at all. Just the way how he approached the game. Last year, he was in a rotation, but obviously that last game, his name got called and he stood up, and made plays for us. And obviously when you see him in camp, he's making plays all over the field. So, he's playing a very big role for us. He's playing a good amount of snaps for us, and, I can't wait to see what he do this year.
The depth of corner on this team is incredible, and Jaquan McMillan, one of the big reasons why.
Yeah, and I mean, only that one game last year they played at the end of the season against the Chargers, but interesting to see Pat Surtain talking about how the signs of potential were evident in practice. He was working on the practice squad, so basically scout team, which meant he was going up against whoever the number one receivers were, Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. So he was getting a challenge week after week, and you watched him in the Chargers game in the finale. I mean, he plays with a tenacity. He's one of those guys who's kind of got that dog in him. The technique obviously needs a lot of refinement, but if you start with that sort of ferocity, that's a good place to begin.
Yes. It also is the sign of a short memory.
Yeah,
like you
true.
can see Jaquan get burned out there. It doesn't bother him. Like he just comes right back and he's still in your back pocket. Even though he's a smaller corner, Mace, he has no problem going up against the big guys, knocking the ball away, getting there a little bit too early. Like we love Jaquan. Man, he's a wild hair out there sometimes.
I know I've said this, but he reminds me of another guy with the same surname back in the 1990s. You remember Mark McMillan?
Yep, you have
Mighty Mouse.
Because I said he reminds me of Chris Harris in a little bit. That's a incredibly high praise, but there's
I think
little Chris Harris.
Yeah, I think more Mark McMillan is probably a better comp at this point because I think the Chris Harris Jr. comparison is probably unfair.
That sets a lot of expectations.
That guy's going to be in the Ring of Fame for the Broncos. He's as an all-decade guy in the 2010s, he's going to get some Hall of Fame conversation, right? So that's why back off. It's why I even back off on the Champ Bailey PS2 comps, even though PS2's been an All-Pro.
Right.
You know, I don't think that's fair to PS2, but we'll see. We're fixing to find out.
We are. But the depth at corner also is there with Jaquan McMillan and Asang Bassi, just when you thought he was out of it and McMillan was taking everything. And Asang Bassi making his physicality known today. Hey, Pats, come on. You want to set yourself apart? Because Jaquan, we're excited about his feistiness. He's not physical like that, like Bassi was today.
Yeah, Bassi making that play just coming out of nowhere and torpedoing a play. That was the one to Montreal, right?
Yes.
In the left flat, kind of it got blown up and Bassi just kind of had missile lock on him to quote Nuke Lucian, Bull Durham, he announced his presence with authority. He brought the heat.
He did.
Brought the heater.
Yeah. So now we're talking about
announced my presence with authority. If you've seen Bull Durham, you know what I'm talking about. Sorry.
Damari Mathis.
There's your baseball reference for the day.
Behind him, you've got Asang Bassi, you've got Jaquan McMillan, you've got guys that we haven't even talked about yet, like an Art Green, stuff like that. Like you've got cornerback depth. Again, there's certain spots where you feel good about your reserves. Corner is certainly one of them.
It's early. Were you hoping to see a little bit more from Art Green?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few guys, especially the undrafted guys, Thomas and Coombe. You've seen some flashes.
Marcus Haynes has actually been the better.
Marcus Haynes has been
of the
one.
Undrafted edges who came in. With all respect to Thomas and Coombe, Marcus Haynes has made some plays.
Yes.
With Art Green, man, you see the length, you see the size. He looks the part. It just hasn't come together. It's 5 days in a training camp. They just put on the pads today. So we don't want to jump to conclusions here, but if you're talking about who's making some impressions early, and by the way, Marcus Haynes made plays again today when they put the pads on, which is always kind of what you want to see. And then we can get to Jaleel McLaughlin because this is when you start separating things at running back. And they put on the pads, and boy, Jaleel looked terrific today.
Magnificent. Let's get to Jaleel McLaughlin. Sean Payton, your Broncos head coach, had quite a nice thing or two to say about the undrafted rookie. Here's Sean Payton.
Well, he's got a little burst, and there's some toughness to him. You know, he's the first one here. I don't know what time he gets here in the morning, but it's pretty early. He's a guy you root for. You know, he's shifty. He's got good change of direction, and it's funny when you put the pads on players for the first day. Then you really get an appreciation of how they look in pads. It's hard to measure that when they're not in pads. And so today was that day where you're just looking around at everyone and how they carry the pads. So it'll be a good stretch for him, though. You know, he's a guy that, man, it's real important to.
It's real important to him.
Yeah,
I like that last comment there.
He added in the next response that it's 5 a.m. when Jaleel McLaughlin is getting in the morning basically before like all the field maintenance people are getting there. So the other thing on Jaleel McLaughlin, and I think this is interesting. You want to you look for breadcrumbs, right? When Sean Payton has pre-draft press conference and they were going over the picks, and obviously it came up the post. Did I say pre-draft? I meant post-draft. When Sean Payton has post-draft press conference, he was going through who they picked. And of course, they didn't pick a running back. A lot of people thought they'd go running back.
Oh, yeah.
And he pointed out that the last time the Broncos were in the Super Bowl, there was an undrafted player who was the starting running back in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Your friend, my friend, CJ Anderson. So I thought it was interesting because at that time, all the stuff is going down with the undrafted you're going to bring in. So at that point, he's saying that he knows that Jaleel McLaughlin's coming in, right? And you and I have been excited about this guy since the moment his name came across the wire for the Broncos adding him. And watching him today, watching a crease narrow, and he squeezes his way through. He's decisive, but he can make himself small and has that burst to explode through the hole. I mean, it was so cool to watch because you've seen it on film, but then you're seeing it actually in an NFL practice.
On a pro field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And man, this kid might have something special to him long term.
And he ran it out. That's what I always look for. I was like, run it out, kid. You're going to burst like that, because he was gone.
Yeah.
And what would have been, a 70-yard run, whatever it was. So holes collapsing. He's inside out. He gets through, turns on the speed, and he can outrun angles. That's how fast he is. Football's a game of geometry. If you can outrun angles, you got some speed. This kid's got wheels.
It's geometry, but speed is the antidote to geometry.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So physics, are we saying physics beats geometry?
Yes.
Oh, there's geometry involved in physics.
There is.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Fibonacci
But the force, the force that he delivers, right? Because he can get by you, but he can get through you as well. Mass times acceleration.
Yes. Yeah. And actually, the better run, that's a great run, right?
Yes.
I think there might have been a better run. It's when he cut back against the grain. We're talking about vision. And I've had conversations after conversations many times with Terrell Davis about this, like footwork and vision, the keys to a running back success. So the play is scheduled wide zone to go to the right. And you're supposed to bend, bang, or bounce. That's your choice when you get to the entry point as a running back. Bend, bang, or bounce it outside. A lot of small backs will bounce it outside. He saw the cutback to the left. And now it would have been maybe like a 10-yard or 15-yard run, not a 70-yard run. But he saw that when this was nothing but trash in front of him, he had the wherewithal to go, you know what? That guy's crashing too hard. It's almost like eyes everywhere, not in the back of his head, but just understanding the angles, there we go again, of pursuit.
And you got to have a quick processor because you've got to analyze where everyone's going to go, where you project them to go, and make that decisive move. I mean, he who hesitates is lost in the running back game in the NFL.
I like that.
There's no hesitation. He's making those snap choices, and then he's got good body control to make sure that he can do that in a flash.
You know what that shows me?
Yeah.
It shows the higher level of understanding. And something I remember talking to Terrell Davis again. I've talked to Terrell Davis, everybody, is that
you're name dropping today.
It's what I do. I asked Terrell, like, okay, when you got the handoff, were you looking at the linebackers, to set up your move? And he goes, no, I already had those guys beat. I was looking at the safeties. So, because you mentioned the timing of Jaleel McLaughlin, it's like he's a conductor, because he's like, I'm going to go here knowing that the note is to do this. Nobody sees this, but he understands that by showing his shoulders this way, that defensive pursuit is going to be hard towards that entry point, and he can just bounce it, and he can bend it. He can bend it back and make a positive gain out of what would have been a nothing play.
Yeah, it's impressive to watch. And the interesting thing is we rave about his pass catching ability. You and I both say he's Philip Lindsay, except with better hands, right? That hasn't really been on display yet.
Right.
It's been these cutback runs that we've seen. And today, doing it as the tempo accelerated, as full pads went on, was another check mark on his list here. Another item taken care of. What's next? I mean, there's a realistic shot he can make the 53 if he has more days like this.
Yes, and I think pass protection will be the bigger kind of tell, if you will. If he's good in pass pro, if you can trust the rookie in pass pro, Edwards says his new name is Supersonic. Supersonic.
I knew you were going to go there with that.
Oh, of course, baby. We're children of the 90s and 80s a little bit. So, yeah, Supersonic.
Supersonic.
That's correct. Salt and pepper, right?
Um,
Had to be salt and pepper.
I don't think it was.
It wasn't salt and pepper? Salt and
It
pepper?
sounds like salt and pepper.
Okay.
Hang on. I could be wrong.
It's definitely
no.
salt and pepper. Supersonic.
JJ Fad.
What?
Right here,
Can
buddy.
you play it?
Yeah.
We'll get a copyright.
Yeah.
We'll get a ding on YouTube. You can't play that music.
There it was.
Okay.
Number 30 in the Hot 100, number 10 in the Billboard Hot Dancing Club Play.
Number 1 in your hearts.
It was number 1 on the Canadian dance chart.
They dance in Canada?
What? Why wouldn't they? I'm by the way, I'm always fascinated with numbers and charts and things like that. That's so like it's always interesting to see how there are some memorable songs that don't get any chart traction, right?
Right.
That end up sticking in the zeitgeist. And there are some songs that actually, soar to the top, and it's like, what the heck? Those are terrible.
What are they doing? What are you doing?
Does anyone sing "We Are the World" anymore?
No.
Exactly.
Unless they're trying to make fun of Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, there
A lot
comes a
of
time.
hardworking Americans out there. Anyway.
Wait, no, it's like we're saving our own lives. Oh wait, I almost did like Bob Dylan does it. Yeah, he's like, we're saving our lives
for you and me.
There you go. Yeah,
there you go.
yeah. But
Everyone can do a Bob
they're-
Dylan.
But Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen in that song were uncomfortably close, right?
Oh, they were close.
Yeah, and in how they sounded.
Oh,
A little
okay.
bit dyspeptic, but apparently that was an all-night recording session.
Gotta get it in.
Anyway,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. Orange and Blue today, presented by Sean Ponda. Why does Greg Dulcich not look good? Did you notice that today? Alberto was getting a lot of work,
Yeah.
and Adam Troutman is the Joker. Chris Manhertz caught a couple of passes. Why?
It's not
Greg
been a
Dulcich has not had a good camp.
It's not been a good start to him.
No.
For him.
And I thought, okay, the pads are off. Kid's going to take off. He's going to look good. Pads on. I need to see it. I haven't seen anything outside of maybe one catch on the second day. And that was, again, catching it from Ben DiNucci. Like, what's going on?
The moments to stick out for him are in 7-on-7, not in team.
Right.
So that's another concern right now. Yeah, I can't figure it out here. It should be coming together for him. He doesn't look injured.
No, not
At
at
all.
all.
That's your first reaction if you see a guy underperforming that can be better, and you've seen it. Oh, they must be
little
hurt,
banged up,
a little
something.
banged up.
Yeah.
They tweaked something. There's no evidence of that with Greg Dulcich right now. It's confounding.
Yes.
And concerning.
Disappointing.
And disappointing and concerning because who else steps up? Because with all respect to Albert O, we know he's not going to be there as a blocker. But at some point, you may have to say, look, we're going to go with the guy who's making more plays. Albert O is making more plays out there right now.
Yes.
Than Greg Dulcich.
He's getting more opportunity
Yes.
with the first team than is Greg Dulcich. We'll keep your eyes and ears on that. Good to see Mike McGlinchey out there today.
Mhm.
We're definitely sending positive vibes his way after a death in the family.
Yeah.
But you could tell there's some more tenacity. One of the big plays from Javonte. I think it might have been one of the first carries in teams. And hey, Samaje had a big play or two as well, but that was to the right side.
Yeah.
And it was Miners, McGlinchey leading the way, pushing guys out of the way.
Pretty cool. And that
Really
offensive
cool.
line, this was the first day we actually saw the entire offensive line together as you want it constituted in training camp. I'll tell you what, there was one play, one sweep. It was Quinn Miners and Lloyd Cushenberry, man, who were getting out there and making the blocks and creating the seal. Cush has looked better this camp. I think there is really something to the idea of flanking him with two mammoth human beings in Ben Powers and Quinn Miners, two absolute road graders, and Quinn, of course, having the big belly center of gravity, and that allowing Cushenberry to lean on them a bit more and then play to Cush's strengths, and his strengths are up here. He's one of the smartest,
He's brilliant
offensive linemen in the game. The guy could do anything he wants to do in life. He's playing football. And he's got a real quick processor. He works well with the quarterback, getting things set up. And he's got to quit, and he's quick to react. So that's the thing. He's got a great mind, but it functions fast as well. So yeah, Cush's looked pretty good to me watching these practices. I'm glad I'm not on an island on this. Sometimes I'm like, okay, let me run this by somebody else, make sure I'm not being deceived.
Make sure we're not crazy.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Cush
Heat
looks good.
exhaustion.
Yeah.
No, Cush looks good, and it just leads me down the road of like, okay, sign him.
Before the value goes up?
Yep. Because once that value goes up, you want
Yeah.
a starting center like that. This ain't gonna be Dalton Reisner sitting around with no job.
Well, the
Apologies.
other thing on Cush is he went to LSU. The LSU and New Orleans Saints programs are both very well
Very, very
connected.
close.
So guys like Zach Strief, Sean Payton, they've known about Cush for a
They probably
long
admired
time.
him from afar.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, wish we could have that guy.
Yeah. So he's one of those dudes that I think truly benefited from this coaching change. I think Quinn Miners benefited from this coaching change too, because this style favors him so much.
Breath of fresh air.
This type of power blocking is what he was born to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to go down the let's start giving contracts willy-nilly. You remember
They just paid Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton willy-nilly.
Well, I was thinking more of, do you remember back in 2017 after the first couple of games when the clamor arose to give Trevor Siemian an extension?
Won't be shocked that clamor was not from me, but we were running promos because
I
Mark
remember.
Schlereth,
Yeah.
Mark Schlereth was saying like, pay the man, pay him.
I was doing shows on another station at the time that no longer does sports, but I remember the promos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pay the man.
Yeah.
And then what? The Giants came around.
The dirty secret is that the competitors listen to this station.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The Broncos listen, the competitor, they're our best listeners.
I mean, and believe me, I found that out working here. I said something on the radio, and about 30 seconds later, my phone blows up.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh boy. Nate wants
Yeah.
a Shelby update.
Okay.
I haven't started her yet this year, but wait, not my car. Shelby Harris. Yes, Shelby Harris.
You know what? The quote from Sean Payton about Shelby Harris when asked about him did not sound like a man who was about to sign him.
No.
It sounded more like the vibes of, all right, he's in town. We don't have to pay for the flight. Let's bring him in.
Right.
Take a look-see.
Right.
Yeah, that was it. I don't think that's imminent.
No. All right, Mace. Any other updates you wanted to give before we're out of here? Just trying to go over the mental Rolodex.
Okay, we did not
stuff
see
we
Frank
saw.
Clark or Riley Moss out there today.
Right. What was Moss's thing?
Remember, he missed some time back in OTA's minicamp as well.
Okay.
What was the injury on
I
blanket?
can't remember,
Yeah.
but at least Drew Sanders was out there. I saw Sanders make some plays.
Yeah.
Nick Benito continues to have a here or there. Henningsen, I think, batted a pass. Is that
He did,
right?
I believe so.
I think he
Yeah.
batted a Russell Wilson pass. So, there's some. We're keeping notes on
Some
everybody.
things are happening.
Yes, things are
Um,
moving.
Don't forget with Frank Clark, he missed all of OTAs, all of minicamp. So it's possible they're just ramping him back up because he didn't have that off-season conditioning. And they're taking their time and being prudent. First day in pads, maybe just didn't want to have him going out there. By the way, Jonathan Cooper, real good day today.
Yes.
Sack of Russell Wilson today. Clear sack. Yeah. Baron Browning better be careful. He might be getting Wally pipped here among Ohio State edge rushers. And we get a question about Coop. Yeah, Coop's looking terrific. He's
having a great camp.
He's honestly, he is looking to the point where if he has to start a bunch of games, I feel comfortable. He was solid last year, especially against the run. He looks to have added a couple of tools to his drawer. So hopefully we'll talk to him at some point in the next week or so, find out kind of what he's been working on.
To me, it looks like he's learned how to stack moves better because he's always had multiple moves, But a lot of those young guys, even when they come from the big schools, they're like, they can do one move. They don't know how to stack it to the second one. And players like DeMarcus Ware, they would almost do a first move knowing that they were going to the second move anyway. That's why Ware's,
that's why he's a Hall of Famer.
Right. So Cooper, learn to stack moves. I like that.
Yeah, it's also exciting to watch a player year to year get better too. That's another thing.
Because players can change. You asked me about Montrell Washington earlier. Like, I'm always open to the players can change. Here's what we've seen so far. Here's what they need to do. Now it's on them to change or improve or upgrade.
Well, as a wise man once said, if I can change and you can change, then maybe we all can change.
True that.
Yeah. That's a good place to end this, I think.
That is. It is Orange and Blue today. We are presented by Sean Honda. It's going to watch some Futurama before Denver sports tonight. Anyway.
Tonight, I want to not throw up on you.
Our training camp reports, both of us are putting out daily reports. They're available at denversports.com. So please make sure. I almost had to cuss out Zach Bye today because he missed Saturday and Stokely was giving him crap. And I was like, whoa, if you have to miss practice, just read the training camp reports, plural, from Andrew Mason, from Cecil Lammey at denversports.com. It'll be like as if you're there.
That's the point, right? If you miss it, and look, only 3,000 people can get it on the hillside this year because it's ticketed. I have to check and see how that return process is going because apparently there were some tickets returned for today.
Okay.
That became available. So yeah, check the Broncos website, check Ticketmaster. If you want to go to practice, apparently the return protocol is working pretty well to have some last minute availability there. By the way, before we go, I made the mistake of not taking a picture of this. I was mainly because it was a kid wearing it as well. But I have to point out that as I was walking into the media room, where the media entry is, it's by like where they have all the inflatables,
bouncing castle,
and things for kids to throw with passes, time themselves, sprinting, etc. Anyway, there was a young man, probably had to be about 8 or 9 or so, wearing a Raheem Moore jersey.
Wow.
First of all, he wasn't alive, presumably, when the Raheem Moore moment happened in January of 2013. Second of all, I'm thinking to myself, oh, man, if you're a parent, why would you do that? But then I thought, it might have been just a hand-me-down because the kid...
hand-me-down jersey.
Yeah, but still, that was an interesting sight.
Yeah.
I've seen multiple Eddie Royal jerseys out there at training camp.
Mm-hmm. I saw a dude in a Mercedes Lewis jersey, Jacksonville. And I was like, why? He had a Broncos hat on and a Mercedes Lewis jersey.
Some people are football bigamists.
Saw an Ashley Lilly jersey today. Yeah. That was cool.
I saw a Case Keenum jersey on Friday.
Wow.
Yes. I should have taken a picture.
Like a unicorn.
Saw
my book.
Saw a Dalton Reisner jersey. But yeah, I've seen a Brian Dawkins jersey as well.
Okay.
But yeah, Raheem Moore, that was the one. I saw a Clinton Portis jersey today. And a John Lynch jersey today.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
We're always on the watch.
I mean, there are some idle moments in practice, walkthrough periods, that kind of thing. You just find yourself looking around saying, oh,
nice jersey.
Yeah, what jerseys do people have today? I haven't seen a Jerry Rice one yet. I always love seeing Jerry Rice jersey.
Yep. Number 19.
Then there are some unicorns. Like if you have a Maurice Clarett jersey, or if you have a Travis Henry jersey, how many different kids did he have in different states? Incalculable.
Yes.
I mean, I think there's some higher math involved with that. But anyhow, you're
Make
not
sure your jersey game's on point.
Yeah. Sometimes that's where if a player doesn't work out, you hang on to that jersey. You know what? Let's see a Kevin Casper jersey out there.
It's a throwback.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what my Moby Dick of jerseys is?
What?
And I've actually asked, I had someone call him to see if he still had one.
Yeah.
Because he's a coach at a community college in California. Leonard Russell throwback jersey.
Oh, from 1994.
From 1994. The only year he was here with the Broncos. For whatever reason, I love that guy. Love that power. Because that's all it was, like 3.5 a carry, just straight down the middle. But that was, when I see the Terrell Davis jerseys with the 75th patch, I get mad because that was 1994 and Terrell Davis was at Georgia. Okay. Those are great looking jerseys, no doubt. the Mecklenburg one, the Atwater one, the Elway one. Not Terrell Davis. Don't wear that jersey.
Okay. This one is just because I love the spelling of his name, and also number 69.
Nice.
Hassan Arbubakar played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, number 69, but his surname is spelled Arbubakr.
Abubakar.
That's an awesome last name, right? But that was before jerseys were made. But I'm actually thinking about seeing, now the Bucs are doing a throwback, if I can have one of those made.
You could.
Yeah, have the orange jersey made, Hassan Abubakar. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Played 16 games for Tampa Bay, 4 games for Minnesota. Yep.
There you go.
Or the other one would be Booker Reese, one of the all-time draft stories. In 1982, in the first round, Tampa Bay turned in the wrong card. And they thought they were picking Booker Reese, a defensive end from Bethune-Cookman. Instead, they took Sean Farrell, an offensive lineman from Penn State. Now, Sean Farrell had a really good career. He played 5 years for the Bucs. I think he played 9 or 10 seasons when all was said and done. And Booker Reese was a bust. But they were so panicked about not getting Booker Reese that they traded their first round pick the next year to try to get him, which of course we know 1983 first round was an all-timer, right? And the Bucs would have picked, I think they would have picked about like 14th or 15th, and there was still plenty of quality there, and instead they didn't have that pick. And it was just part of many bad moves they made. Booker Reese also took his signing bonus and bought 2 Corvettes in cash.
You only get that on this show. Orange and Blue today. We are presented by.
That's why we do it at the end. We mess around at the end.
Sean Ponda.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's when we get to story time with Uncle Mace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Until next time, he's Andrew Mason. I'm Cecil Lammey. Stay frosty, everybody.
You forgot you didn't do your be safe.
Sorry. Be safe. Be kind.
Know that you're appreciated. Stay tuned.
And would you please stay frosty?